And I just kind of figured to get started, I just talk about where we're at right now.
Mm-hmm.
Currently, I'm the only grad student involved. COVID kind of kicked us in the pants with the pandemic. As a student, this has been a different go around in grad school. So one of the co-directors who had just signed on went back to Tennessee for the semester, and so she's staying back with her parents. She's a photographer, so she didn't really need to necessarily be in the studio. And then the other one is doing his PC, and so he's incredibly busy. And the rest are just sort of like getting either in thesis year or in a delayed PC, because they're doing it instead of in the fall, they're doing it in the spring.
Yeah.
Things been just kind of messed up. And then the first years are just trying to figure their stuff out while everything is just topsy-turvy and everybody's overworked, because we're trying to teach classes both in person and online simultaneously.
Yeah.
It's like teaching two classes, even though you're getting paid for one, which has been bananas.
Yeah.
So it's really just me. I had two of the BFAs help me get the auction up, which was nice. But I was kind of set to sort of go it alone for the summer, putting up online shows. And then I get a call from Karis Realty saying, hey, we want to turn this spot into a coffee shop. We want to rent the walls once a month. I'm like, that's not really how this works.
Yeah.
And that wouldn't really fulfill the niche that we fill in the community.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of other things that they want. I don't think they really understood how any gallery, much less FrontierSpace, functions.
Yeah.
So
that sounds like Karis.
Yeah. And they also wanted me to sign a lease and they didn't quite know how they wanted to renovate the space yet. They knew they wanted to knock out a couple walls, put in a big window on one side, a glass door in front, and eliminate the auxiliary space, like knock over that wall and open that up. And they wanted me to go ahead and sign the lease without them really having a plan. But I sign leases without knowing what the space is. That's really not actually legal, so no thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we haven't had a space since June, which has been interesting. Been doing online stuff, and I came up, like I've seen other art trailers with mobile galleries at like NCECA, the ceramics conference, and other places, and said, well, I know the guy over in facilities, and I asked him if we could store a trailer there, and he said yes. And I said, why not buy a trailer? One-time upfront costs, there's maybe a little maintenance, but there's no more struggling to get the monthly rent.
Yeah.
And so there'd never be that, like, can anyone toss $20 in so we can make the rent payment this month?
Yeah.
Kind of.
I'm sure Tyler and James can remember when like Nate and Will had that trailer that they had to sing in and stuff. So
yeah, and that one was really small. So it looks like the picture of the one you guys are thinking about looks decent size.
Yeah.
There's a couple of foreclosure auctions and police auctions over in Tacoma, and they have some enclosed ones that are huge, like 24 feet. You can still pull it with a normal trailer hitch. I looked at buying like old U-Hauls and some of those box ones, and they were about the same price as a 24-foot enclosed trailer.
Yeah.
I said, well, why not just go for that?
That sounds awesome. It's kind of perfect for Missoula. I think Missoula really has a good community and infrastructure for a gallery like that, mobile.
Yeah, and there are already a couple of Artmobile, like there's the Artmobile and another one that I can't remember the name of, that travel on First Fridays. And, you know, I figure if we got some neodymium magnets, we could even like kind of epoxy maybe a hanging mechanism to those and hang art on the outside as well of the trailer for
Totally.
First Fridays. Like there are some opportunities there. I'm actually about to learn to bend neon over in Dillon. So I figured maybe while I'm doing that, I could make a new sign.
Cool.
And you know, kind of revamp the place. And if future directors have the time or energy, they could even expand the educational future of FrontierSpace to kind of, you know, travel to schools or other locations. So there's kind of a bit more openness in the future there, if people want to do it. I mean, I'm going to graduate eventually. Eventually, I'm going to be a fourth year because I'm doing both degrees.
Ooh.
Which will be 3 masters for me, because I'm
Dang.
Nice.
Collecting.
just collecting them like trading cards.
I don't blame you. I'd go back and do another one. That was so fun.
Yeah, I figure just if I keep doing them every 10 years, it doesn't look so bad. So I graduated
Forever student. I love it.
2008, 2018. The next one will be in, you know,
A couple years.
Got to plan ahead.
Yes.
So that's kind of state of things. We've already sold like 4 items from the auction, and I've been kind of like a nervous parent, sort of like making like things are being put in people's watch list. There's been a few other bids. It looks good. I wasn't sure, like right now it's such a weird time to host an auction, but people really, I've heard a lot of people say like they really want to support FrontierSpace. They love what we do. And that's awesome. And I was so nervous about being the person who was in charge when everything fell out from underneath the organization. I was like, I don't want to be the person who ended it.
No, it
Yeah,
sounds like the right move.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it's not fun running it by yourself. I kind of talked some other people into it. James can kind of attest to that, and
Yeah.
so could Burke and, and some others. You know, I was left in the, like Nate and Will were graduating, and they're like, well, you can continue to do this, or you can do whatever. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, especially because everything's so online right now. It's really hard to like there's no installing to do or any of that. It's a little bit easier to go it by myself, but it would be very nice to have some other folks to.
Yeah.
I think I've got a couple of first years on the hook, and I think they're gonna join up, especially when it comes to like building out the new gallery.
Yeah.
I think they'll join me. I can be kind of persuasive.
Yeah. I'm not persuasive at all, so I guess James and Burke just have big hearts or something, I feel like.
Yeah, I remember that when you asked me, Josh, and when you asked Burke, and that was kind of an interesting thing because, like, knowing it was weird because it was like Nate and Will started that space. It was like their space. I remember when I, went to the first show, I thought it was like, awesome, and I was like, how can I be a part of this? What does this place look like? So I jumped at the opportunity. You didn't have to, you didn't need those skills and persuasion. So yeah. But I do think that was kind of an interesting time too, like when we were doing it, because it was like, I remember always thinking like, oh, this is like Nate and Will's thing. And I think it's, so interesting to think about how, because then, I was a part of like, various teams, because I was a part with you and Burke, and then Tyler, Sarah and Claire came on, and Beth was a part of it. And then Tressa I actually don't think, I think Tressa came on when I was leaving. I don't remember, but yeah, it was interesting, having that, because I think, and I've talked to other people, it's like we had sort of that connection to Will and Nate. Like Will would show up, sometimes
Yeah.
after that. And I just think it's a really interesting and testament to the, just the grad students in Montana, that we're talking about 10 years
Yes.
down the road, that it's like
Yeah.
still a thing.
That's pretty amazing. I really think, yeah. It would have been nice to see like more people and stuff, because I remember like the last time I saw Nathan, like the day before he left, he pretty much said like, he's like, I'm gonna be blunt, I'll never see you guys again. I'll never see any of you people again. He said that to Yarrow. I remember him saying it personally to Yarrow. He's like, I'll never see you again. He's like, I'm not gonna like sugarcoat. And I just thought that was like kind of surreal. But yeah, it's like I don't know. I'm not very good at maintaining like keeping touch with people and stuff. But it's like, I don't know. I think it's pretty cool that like the gallery as like kind of a binding agent to like just the connections with all the people and stuff. I don't know. Every once in a while, I remember like the last time I talked to Bert too, it was just like on a text or whatever, and he was just like, I think he sent me a link for like a Radiohead video or something like that. It was kind of weird, but yeah, I don't know. It's it's bittersweet though, because it's like, I mean, it's not my thing anymore, and I'm so glad that we are talking like 10 years later and it's still like a thing. I think that's cool. I'll stop my rambling.
I saw Nate 2 years ago, so Nate lied. He did see me. So yeah, guess he was able to maybe avoid others, but yeah.
Yeah, I haven't even, like, I had to really search for a few people's emails. A lot of people have defunct websites.
Yeah. Who narked on me? How'd you get my number? Who gave me up?
I don't remember. It was a while ago. But
I figured it was either James or Bert probably did. So if James isn't fessing up to it.
Must have been James.
I don't think, well, maybe I did, but it wasn't, I don't think it was me, but yeah.
Wow.
I remember who it was. I tried asking Valerie and she was like, I don't know.
That's funny.
I don't know. It may have been someone in alumni relations
Yeah,
here at the
probably so. Yeah.
I also work at KBGA, the college radio station.
Mm-hmm.
I have some connections. So when I went searching for who used to be part of this, I just went and asked people who'd been at the university or in the department, or
Yeah.
like Peggy Nesbitt over in the dean's office, who's been here for 25 years. I was just like, okay, what do you remember? You put me in touch with.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just did my detective work. I had a lot.
Good on you.
I was sitting at home here during the period of lockdown that was wasted. Just like, okay, I'm gonna go look all these people up. Some people are easy to find, and I hope I caught everybody. I may have missed some people who were directors and I never was able to. We did not keep good records. But there's a list now. So, and if anyone wants to do this in another 10 years, at least they'll have that list. I hope it's around another 10 years. I was really excited when I came here and they said, hey, there's a grad student run gallery. And I'm like, hell yeah, sign me up.
Yeah.
I was surprised I was still on the list. I think I might have the record for worst and shortest director term, co-director. I don't know. Tyler and James know that it was not my strong suit the whole time, but it's definitely funny to think about now what I do and how much of what I learned from FrontierSpace is a major part of you know, how I do my job now. So it was a great space for me to do poorly at, so I could learn how to be better the next time.
I mean, that's kind of what it's for, really.
That's good.
That's how I see it. It's a chance for students to learn and for artists to, it's like a testing ground almost for artists.
Oh yeah.
Space, so this is how I sell it, is it's smaller space, so it's not as imposing as most gallery spaces, which are much larger, and it's accessible because it's cheaper to just apply and to rent, and the audience is there, and it's really the only alternative type space in the community that is still a white cube, like professional gallery setting. So it's really unique. I don't, outside of Seattle, I haven't seen a lot of places that have that type of space that's accessible to emerging and early career artists, yet still it's not just a basement of a dingy store or something. So like that's really my selling point, is that, and it's also a chance for people who are going to go out and be professionals in the field to get some experience really truly being in charge.
Yeah.
Because normally we're just interns or gallery attendants or whatnot, and then you finish the MFA and people are like, okay, let's hire you.
Do it, run it.
Do it, you're in charge. And if you screw up, it's your job.
Yeah.
Here it's like, if you screw up, it was a single day show.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I did appreciate the opportunity from Tyler and James and Sarah and Claire, who were all on it at the time. It was still really, really fun.
I hope it continues to be.
Yeah. I kind of feel like, that's the thing. It's like, I don't know, it was an opportunity to just, I don't know, like it was a professional space in an alley, off of an alley. And, but no, I mean, I look back at it as like, like even when the shows even if the shows were underwhelming, because I mean, I know, like Tyler, you and I would talk about that, like to where it'd be like, yeah, that show wasn't good. That just it just was not a good show. But still it was like, people still come to the alley. It was a place to hang out. And it's like ultimately, like, like most galleries, it did have that aspect of not necessarily always there for the art. You're there also for the, beer that we asked for a donation. Didn't always get. And it was just a good opportunity for, students, for all of us involved. We were just like try shit, basically, and just be like, okay, like, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but it does. I don't know, it did give me, some actual tangible experience. I know, like, it was a reason that I got the job before I, have the job that I have now. It did help a lot when I was applying as a gallery director, because, they were like, oh yeah, like you were co-director of this space. This seems cool. Like, I think they had grand ambitions for what their space could become, but it wouldn't. But anyway, that's a whole different thing. But I think it did have actual real, tangible, like CV type, importance. But also, I look back on it, it's like one of my favorite things I did when I was at Missoula. Like obviously, like the degree is sort of important too, but it's that's kind of a big one. I remember looking back at that, it's like, more so than any of the work I was making when I was, in grad school. It's like, no, I can actually look back on that and it's like, it didn't always work, but it was, I don't know, for those like 2.5 years I was involved with it, it's like, that was maybe the most important thing that I was doing, in an art related capacity, actually. So I have, really good memories of FrontierSpace. So
Yeah. I'd have to add on to there too, that like my time with it was, I feel like it was the most fun I had in school. It was also the time that I was like kind of really frustrated at times too with things, just by dealing with the public sometimes. I had some issues there, and but I mean, Missoula was really cool, and everyone was really laid back, and everything. It seemed like everyone was super supportive of that space, which I was really happy about. But it was a lot of work. It was a lot of work, and it was a lot of effort. And I mean, I tip my hat to all of you that did this, because yeah, it was a lot of work. It was fun, but it was tough at the same time. So that's off to you guys.
What about you, Tyler? You're too quiet. I have to hear you.
Yeah, it's so a lot of things are racing through my brain. One is, or a number of things. So I think FrontierSpace and graduate school for me have a hard time separating the two. And you know, let's just say 3 years, even though I was in Missoula kind of longer because I was teaching in Dillon and stuff like that. But those kind of 3 years plus, there was a lot of learning, and not just like art wise, but just socially figuring out how to deal with people, work related and not work related in school, and all these different relationships that like kind of fed into art practice, and so yeah, I made some mistakes and made some triumphs, and overall I really feel really awesome about looking back. And then so sitting here kind of 5 years now, it's been 5 years so that I've left, and not seeing Josh for 8 or so years, it's and then seeing kind of how much passion Amanda has on the trailer, and trying to kind of like this new way of thinking, just thinking, hearing how you thinking about the space is different than some conversations that I had with Josh and James, and then also 4 years later when I was running it with Sarah and other people, how it evolves over time. And I think overall that's usually a really good thing, that things grow. And it's usually the best when it happens when you're really passionate people. And it seems to me, from my perspective, Amanda and people potentially you're putting around are really passionate what you do. I might not agree with it, but like you have all this energy to do it, and that is fucking awesome. And so, yeah, it's really cool.
I mean, I've only been here in Missoula for like 2.5 years. So I only have the idea of FrontierSpace as what I've seen it. What are your thoughts on what FrontierSpace? What FrontierSpace when you were doing it?
I remember Will came in to our studio space where me and some of the other grads were working there, and somebody was saying that, oh, Will, you started a gallery. You and Nate are starting a gallery. I was like, oh, that was really cool. And I was like, from there, I was like, I don't want to be part of it. I mean, I didn't say that, but I mean, that's what I wanted. And I kept like, I went to all the shows, and I'd like hang out and stuff. And I mean, they approached me and they're like, well, it seems like you're like really interested in this and like passionate about it. And I'm like, yeah. And so they asked me to join or whatever. And then it was us. And then they graduated, and they're like, well, you can close the gallery down. You can keep running it. You can do what you want. So I just wanted to keep it going. I mean, I am so happy that it is still a thing and still going. That's the one thing. And I wanted it to be that, and sort of, I mean, like what Tyler was saying is like everybody's brought to it their own thing. I think that's what's great about it. Cause like, if it was still like the gallery that like Will and Nate started, I don't see it being like still around. I don't think it would have, like, I mean, I don't know. Yeah. I'm just was happy to like be there when it kind of first started, and like all the shows, and was like so proud of like even when I was by myself, like just so that I could like get other people to join me and like kind of just be a part of it. I mean, it was super important to me. If they wouldn't have invited me, I may have like started up like a rival gallery or something, just because I don't know. I wanted to be a part of that sort of situation, because I was lucky that I was kind of involved with the gallery as an undergrad too. I mean, not so much like working it, but I like always was passionate about the shows. Always tried to be supportive. Always tried to be in the shows if I could, things like that. So it's like that. I don't know. It was something that was really important to me, and I'm very happy to, I don't know, to know that it's still like a thing. And it's one of those things that like, I hate to say this, but like, I have a lot of memories of Missoula, but most of my happiest ones are thinking about that gallery and like just situations with my friends and co-directors and stuff. That's my happy memories, I think, of school. I mean, when I think of it and my time there, I think of that gallery. So it's like the sign. I would love that sign, like if like nobody else wanted it. But I mean, I would think like, doesn't Will live in it? I would think if anything, Will should have it back, yeah,
Yeah,
since he made it.
I think he still lives here. I don't
Yeah,
ever actually met him.
yeah.
He
I
said
wanted to steal the sign when I left. I wanted to be like a jerk and take it, but I didn't. You know.
he did email me back about the show and said he might have something new, but he's a firefighter now with like either the smoke jumpers or just the Forest Service.
Yeah.
Those fires, so he's been pretty busy recently.
Yes. Yeah.
What else to say about Will is like you probably have seen him and he's passed by you, but he can be kind of elusive and like quick. And if you don't know what he looks like, you could just you wouldn't see him. So
Master of disguise.
So he may have shown up and I just didn't know.
yeah.
Yeah, it's, I mean, and so when I first got here, the grads who were in charge of the gallery, definitely, two of them have gone on to get teaching positions, so they had a little bit more of an educational bent already. And I taught for 13 years before I came back to school. I've taught now for 13 years. I spent 10 years at community college, and between first grad school and this grad school, I've now been in education for longer than not. Like I've just been either a student or a teacher my whole life. So I kind of come after everything with an educational bent. So it's kind of natural that that's where it had been a little bit before I got involved, and then that's sort of the direction that I end up going with with everything. But it's been I'm also just really great to it's kind of been my in with the community, because it's, you know, you move to a new place from somewhere else. Like I grew up in Missouri, lived in Iowa for most of my adult life before, you know, a couple of places in between, and then I lived in Seattle for several years previous to moving here. So I'm like going from small to big to small, and having to, you know, Seattle is not a community at all that you can get involved in. Really, there's no singular art community. And coming to Missoula and wanting to be a part of that FrontierSpace has been a great way to invest in the community and really become a part of it. And that's been really valuable. I've made a lot of connections that way and become involved in other projects as well. And, you know, I can't say enough about like what it's done for me. Just personally, is giving me something to do and something to really focus on as you know, a project and a way to give my time value during the summer when I didn't have access to my studio, and I do ceramics, so it's really not a lot I can do then at home. So like, I'm really glad it was there. I had something to do and work on, and could, I mean, it wasn't an ideal situation, but I was able to put my knowledge into it and also gain back a good sense of like doing something good.
That was the thing. It's like, having the, the community thing is kind of an important thing. It's like, yeah, you are sort of, just if you become a co-director, it's like you're thrust into that. And so it is a great way to, just meet people in sort of the smallish or small art scene there in Missoula. And so it's like, I do remember, I do think that it is good to point out that it was and is a lot of work, because as a grad student, like, you've got all this other stuff that you're doing. And I remember, I can always attest, and Tyler, you probably remember this. I remember we were like, Matt Hammond gave us that, or put that horrible vinyl cutter that wasn't very good in Schreiber, like the painting studios, and we were using it to cut it. And like, it was kind of impossible to use. But I remember it seemed like I would always be getting onto the bus, like probably like an hour before the opening, so we could, like, put that stuff up and, like, get the labels up and all that, painting the gallery. But I mean, it was just like, it's funny, I never really felt like it was this huge burden. I was excited to do these really mundane things to, like, keep the space up. Whereas, like, there are other things where I was like, yeah, I don't really, there would be much more times where I would be like, I do not want to teach drawing one today. I do not want to teach this class. But yeah, but I don't know, it was definitely a lot of work just, to make, because I mean, when you're doing monthly shows, it's like, I suppose there is a reason why galleries stretch that out, because like turning a show around every month is a lot of work, But,
Yeah.
Yeah, if you knew how many chapters I'm behind of grading art history, because I've been working on this auction, because I would way rather work on this than grade, 20 essays. I think it's 25 students that I have charge of writing essays on, originality and provenance. From 100 level art history students. I'm like, no, I'll go work on the auction some more, because kind of it's prettier, and I get to do the writing. And I don't know why, it's just so much, it's all computer, but I'd much rather do this than grade art history. So I'm like, I'm so far behind. Don't even care. I'm glad Valerie's not here to hear me say that, but
Well, you're recording it, so there you go.
she went out hunting yesterday and saw a grizzly. I actually had class with her this morning. So, and she's a little behind too. So not the only one.
Yeah, I think that everybody's always behind. I'm always behind. And I was just thinking about that. I had made all 3 of my classes that I'm teaching this semester. I made them all, they all have assignments that were due on the same time. It was like the perfect storm. We had all the assignments due, all the crits. I'm like, why did I do this? This is just, and one student's like, hey, do you have those assignments, graded? I'm like, no, I don't. I'm just going to be very, nope, and I don't know when they're going to get done. So before, you'll get it by the end of the semester, I can guarantee that. But I don't know, it's like a perpetual thing, I think. But yeah, there's always, something, to do. But I think, yeah, I can definitely see the FrontierSpace thing being, it was a good distraction. I know, like, I actually would put that before certain things that I had to do as well when I was a part of the space. So.
Yeah, I definitely, there were times when we were doing physical openings where I'd call one of the other grad students who was doing the space, and I'm like, look, I've got the vinyl. I'm coming. Can you drag the signs out? I will put the vinyl up as soon as I get there. It might be a touch after 5:30 when we're opening. No one will care. I mean, there'll be people there. I'll just pick it up. I just got the cutter to work.
Thought of this, but Tyler, do you remember when you put like the urinal cakes in the alley to make it smell better, or you thought it would smell better?
Yeah.
I was looking for kind of an emotional and physical experience from the smell. The urine was bad. I tried my darndest to improve it, but that also was a mistake. It was one of my mistakes. Yeah. But we didn't have a hose, If we had some sort of sprayer, or maybe bleach would have been better. I'm not sure.
I have a weird question. What happened to that big ass piano that was there for that one show?
That's right.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, that was partial rent. I sold it.
Really?
Yeah, that was like $100 or something. So do you remember that? I can't remember how much money we got. $60 to $120, somewhere like that.
It wasn't bad. I remember it was annoying that we had to help move it. That was
but we
like
got money for it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I put it on Craigslist or something like that. Yeah.
That alley was weird sometimes. Like the piano, it's just like, hey, you guys want a piano? We moved it out of the building or whatever. I'm like, no, we don't want. And Brooke was like, yes, we want a piano.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm like, no, we don't want a piano. But yeah. So
the tattoo shop next door, these ladies opened a tattoo shop next door in the place where the breaker is, which tripped several times and we had to break into their shop. But they strung up some of these like nice globe lights in the alley where it's covered, and they gave us permission to plug them in so that the alley was better lit. And I went to plug them in, or I think the last in-person show we had back in February. March? We had our March show, yeah. It was March. And I got up on the ladder to plug it in, and there was just a dead pigeon stuck up there. And it had been dead a few days. It was still cold, but I was like, I think I should throw this away. Should move this. Does anyone have a plastic bag or something? I've got a dead pigeon before the opening.
Wow.
There were always pigeons up there.
Yeah. I think I remember seeing a couple like pigeon carcasses for whatever reason when I was helping do something. I just left them. I'm like, I'm not dealing with that. Maybe I figured they might improve the smell of that alley, so I just left them.
Well, it turns out weed is a lot stronger than pee. The alley mostly smelled like weed every time I was there, because the waiters from the pub, Old Post closed last year, but the pub and 5 on Black and those guys would come smoke in the alley, and they weren't smoking cigarettes. It was pungent.
Wow.
I did chase a few of them off a few times because the smoke was like drifting into the gallery.
Yeah. I just had to escort people out because they were throwing clay and stuff like that occasionally. That was the extent of my dealing with the public occasionally. Most people were really cool. It seems like every once in a while you get like the people that were a little inebriated that you had to deal with, but I don't know. I guess I could be an ominous presence if I wanted to persuade somebody to leave the gallery or whatever. So
there was a guy last fall who found that little doorway behind the wall.
Yeah.
Crawled into it, and he came back out and he came to me and he goes, "Did you know there's a portal to another world?"
Wow.
And he spent 20 minutes telling me about this hidden portal to another dimension.
Yeah.
Going on about it. I'm like, dude, you just need to get off whatever you're on and calm down a little bit. It's a doorway. It's just a doorway. There are always some interesting people that came into the alley.
Yeah.
It's gated off now. It's on both sides. There are iron gates with
Mm.
so you can't get into the alley even. So that was another
Mhm.
using the space was that it's not accessible except through the building.
Mhm.
Probably less urine smell. So yeah.
There you go.
I mean, part of the idea was to keep people from peeing it in, I think, but
Yeah.
I mean, they still just pee outside the gate.
You gotta do what you gotta do, I guess.
Find a spot. I think we had to kick somebody out of the gallery once for peeing in the gallery.
Yeah, gentlemen,
Yeah.
Bert Jam's sound installation.
Yeah.
I let him in mistakenly, but
Uh,
Oh.
I was just
that's
the warden.
not very high praise for Burke, I guess, if somebody.
Burke
peed on
actually
your
seemed
glove.
like he enjoyed it to some degree. So
Oh.
I was happy about that.
Well, I have to take off, guys, but it was amazing seeing you all again.
Good
And
seeing
I
you.
appreciate
See
you
you,
putting
Beth.
this together. Amanda, this is awesome.
Yeah. Do you have any final
Yeah.
words?
Not really. I so appreciate the space, and it's really great to see that it's still being taken care of and thought of, and an important part of the Missoula community. And I think it goes to show, in a strong lineage of grad students and students, that it is important and something that should keep on going. So I appreciate the torch being carried on. That's amazing.
Thanks.
Yeah. So, but thank you guys. And I will hopefully virtually see you guys in the future still, or in person.
10 years later.
Yeah. See you for the next 10-year reunion. Thank
Take
you,
care.
everyone.
Bye, Beth.
Right.
So what
Yeah,
what does everyone have?
I was gonna say it's kind of bitter, sort of sweet, because I was thinking about like trying to go by Missoula in like 3 years or so, like my 10-year trip back to like, I don't know, Missoula. You can't go home again or whatever, but I was kind of looking forward to like going and see if like the gallery was still there and stuff. But it may not be in like the same physical spot, but it'll still be there. And that I'm super, super like excited and happy about. And I'm like, I just think it's cool that it's like that. I mean, that it keeps going. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing that I felt always with that gallery. It was like, it was a lot of work, but it was a lot of challenges too. It seemed like you always had to be dealing with something. So I think this is like, it is a bad thing that like, that you can't have that space, that physical space anymore. But I think that's just a very small part of like what like frontier space is and stuff. So I think if it becomes a virtual space, a mobile space, if it becomes a physical space in the future or whatever, I think it's just, I'm just happy that it's still there. It's just really, I don't know. I think it's amazing. And like Beth was saying, it's like, it speaks highly about all of us who were involved on it, that we had that gumption or whatever to do that. So, I mean, good on all you guys.
Yeah, I was really impressed when I got here about that the space was as nice as it was. Like it was built out so nicely for something that was built just by grad students. I mean, professional lighting, and those were, gallery walls, plywood backed walls, and they'd been taken care of for so long.
Yeah. I feel like Nate and Will and Rebecca and somebody else built all those walls, because they did a really good, phenomenal job on it.
Yeah, I was really sad to leave those walls behind. I was like, oh no,
Yeah.
so much work went into this.
Yeah. Lots of materials, lots of there's a lot of paint on those walls and a lot of patching up and stuff. That's for sure.
Inch of those walls at eye height or below that's not patched.
Wow.
But I think the new mobile spaces will open up a lot of new opportunities. So that's exciting, like in some ways a fresh start. And you can go to people instead of having them come to you, and maybe have more social practice exhibitions and things that are more interactive because it can travel. So
Yeah.
I think it's an exciting like transition.
Yeah, I agree. I think that does open up all these opportunities, and I think kind of with that, yeah, like social practice, interactive work, relational work, things that like um, can probably even bring the gallery into the community even more. Actually, that's kind of a nice opportunity to where it's like kind of even rethinking the things that the gallery is kind of capable of doing. And I do think, like, kind of with what Josh was saying, it's almost like FrontierSpace is more of this, like, at this point, if you have something for 10 years, it's like, well, it's more of even you lose the physical space. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love that space, but at this point, it's almost more like an idea. And it's sort of like, okay, what is the mission of this space? It started a decade ago now. And so yeah, I think it is, it's just sort of the next chapter of it, of what the space evolves into. And because I mean, yeah, it's amazing that it's still around. I'll be honest, I actually kind of thought that, like, I was like, when Tyler and Tressa leave the space, because you guys knew well and I was like, maybe it'll close down. I mean, I'll be really honest, I was like, it's had a good run at that point, and so now thinking of it, that it's still around, it's like, that's an even more amazing run. And so yeah, I'm excited to see what happens with the space and where it goes and what it can do now, and it's this mobile life of it.
Yeah. And that's being run by graduate students, you're not tied to anything. So every new set of co-directors can recreate the mission statement, and so that's an exciting opportunity, depending on what your interests are.
Yeah, so I happen to be someone who works in social practice, participatory installation work. So this mobile gallery concept, I was like, yeah, that's what I want to do, because that's what I would want to work with.
Totally. Yeah, I forget. There was like a pop-up gallery that would appear occasionally in Missoula when we were there. I don't know if it's still there, and if you had a show at it once.
Yeah, I don't think Fathom Gallery is doing anything.
They were pretty cool. Yeah.
I don't think they're still here.
It was like a collapsible gallery that they had on like a hitch or something, that they would literally assemble in different spots in Missoula.
I haven't seen them. I've seen things like that.
Yeah.
I think I might have had the last show, because I know after my show they were going to like work on it to improve it, and yada yada yada. Through like social media, I think it's over. But it was kind of cool. It was 4 walls and like a roof, and then it all came apart and just stacked on a flatbed, and then like within like an hour it was like built. So it's kind of a pain, but also a pretty cool space. Pretty cool idea.
Nifty. I used to travel I spent a long time with my studio. I used to make functional pottery, so I would go to art fairs and set up like a tent with shelves, and
yeah.
I essentially had a pop-up gallery set up. So I would go and set up my tent, put out my stuff, sit there for 3 days and sell work. Pack it up, go home. And I did always think that I would one day invest in something like a box truck or something, where I could just have it all sort of already set up and then just kind of slide it out, put it up, and then I would have much less work to do with the setup and everything. But then I changed everything about my work and my life and came back to grad school and did it this way. But I'm glad I'll be really glad if I can leave this thing behind for the next people who come through, because I looked at a lot of grad schools, and not a lot of them have anything even remotely close to this.
Was this part of the, oh, sorry, I interrupted you.
No, it's okay. Like, it's a really unique opportunity as well for grad students here.
Yeah. Was that part of what drew you to the University of Montana?
I think a majority of my coming here was, I did a post-bac at CU Boulder, and Jeannie Quinn said, when I asked her to write a letter of recommendation, she said, "Oh, you're going to Montana, right? You need to study with Julia." And I actually hadn't looked at Montana yet. Like, it was, I knew the university here existed. I'd been through Missoula several times, but Jeannie said, "Oh, you're going to Montana, right?" And I went, "I guess I'm going to Montana." She knows me and my work, and if she says that's where I need to go. And so I looked harder into it, and it was a combination of the dual degree program. I really loved that idea. The access to faculty that you have. And then when I heard about the gallery space, I was like, okay, I'm sold. I don't care if you don't have funding. I've already got $90,000 in student loans from my first run. Funding doesn't matter. I'll take out more loans. But this was definitely one of the three, like, over the end tipping points after I was told this is where I'm going.
Yeah, I think it's a great asset to the program, and just feel like having a way to apply some of the skills you're gaining and gain new skills and collaborate, which doesn't always happen depending on what your practice is like and your personality and a lot of things. But I think and connecting with the community. I found it to be really rewarding. It just it was like real life experience that made my studies seem more tangible, I guess would be how I would describe it. And worthwhile. Like, even if I wasn't ever going to run a gallery again, it's like, oh, okay, this is how this works. This is possible.
But you also get that point of view of the gallery. Wouldn't get otherwise, so that as an artist, you understand like what the gallery is probably thinking and how they're looking at applications, even how communication works on the side of the gallery. And you can maybe work better in the future with galleries, communicate better.
Absolutely.
I think artists are really generally pretty bad at deadlines about sending statements and stuff. And when you're running the gallery, you kind of get a better idea of why you need to send your statement on time.
Yeah.
Social media and other PR. And it definitely gives you, I think, a better handle on how you should relate with galleries and other institutions, people that you're working with as an artist.
Yeah.
You know what practice looks like, and you don't want to be that person.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Is it does make you better in terms of like professionalism. Also, I think it makes you better as an artist, because you can think about like how viewers interact with your work, how you can think about like so just like these tiny details that you don't necessarily really think. I mean, it's one thing working in your studio, and then like thinking about like, okay, like how does this translate when it gets on those white walls, and how should I be thinking about the viewers interaction or participation and interpretation of the work that I'm making. So yeah, I think I don't know, I think all artists should have at least some gallery experience. I think it makes you a better artist, really. It does. So
for sure. Yeah, I've learned so much so far. Like, I've been on for 2 years, and it's been well worth all of my effort and time.
And you all are doing calls through CAA now too. I think I saw that. That's amazing. I think most of when I was there, most of the artists who showed were invited. And we never had like maybe we had a couple open calls, or they had to apply. So you had to kind of be in the know to apply, but
Yeah.
am I correct in that you guys are listed?
Call for 2021 yet because I don't know what the gallery is going to look like. So I don't want to put out a call for shows yet. So I'm kind of waiting. And plus there were several artists whose shows got canceled last year due to COVID, and I want to give them priority in rescheduling a show next year. So I'll probably, like, if depending on how the auction goes, like if things are looking good, I might put together a call in December and have it due maybe February, starting probably in the fall next year. So it'll be a weird season. But we're doing, like, we have open calls right now for online shows at no charge. Like, there's no application fee. You just send an email with your Instagram or website, or both, preferably. And then I have just been discussing with people, what do you want to do? What's your vision for this? Is it work that you're just going to send photos of? Do you have installation shots of it somewhere? We don't have a space. So I mean, we've done probably 10 of them so far.
That's great.
Yes, it's been good. I think they've had decent viewership interaction for, you know, online shows. It is what it is. Hopefully maybe this gets more people, more traffic to the website as they take a look around. I don't know. Corey Crumrine, who was she graduated the year I got here, so I never worked with her. She did an online sale with us over the summer and completely sold out in like 2 days.
That's amazing.
That was cool. That was really neat to be a part of.
Yeah.
So yeah, doing some new things, trying some stuff out, seeing what sticks.
Yeah, thanks for putting the work in. It's great to kind of see from afar.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone have any kind of final thoughts? It's about a little after 6:30.
No, just thank you again for all you're doing.
You're welcome.
Thank you, and I'll see you all in 10 years, but hopefully I'll see all or some of you before then, maybe. I mean, I don't know. It's a small world. You never know what happens. You know? But yes, thank you for putting all this together, and thank you for carrying the torch still. I think it's really cool, and I'm glad you reached out to everybody and that we could do this. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Amanda. And yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I'm excited, to see where the space goes now. It's really, excellent to see it's still around, and I can't wait to see what happens. Like thinking, does it go 5, 10 more years? I'd be, excited to see where it goes. Yeah. So,
Same. Like, I'm
well done.
looking forward to it. Thank you. Thanks for coming tonight, everyone.
Good seeing everybody.
Good
Take care.
Take care, everybody.